Hello everyone, welcome to eDufundae. I am your mentor for the chapter Plant Kingdom from the unit Diversity in the Living World. So let us begin with the introduction of the chapter. While we are talking about different kingdoms, that is the kingdom Fungi, kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, they are classified on the basis of the organisms, their food habits, their structure, etc. Initially, these were put under the kingdom Plantae, but later on they were excluded from that because according to R.H. Whitaker, 5-kingdom classification was given and these organisms were put into the separate kingdoms. While we are talking about cyanobacteria that are also referred to as blue-green algae, actually we are using the term blue-green algae for convenience. Actually, it is a prokaryotic organism that falls under the kingdom Monera and it is actually a bacteria. So, it is not an algae anymore. So, this is the structure of the blue-green algae, the microscopic structure that we study. The kingdom Plantae now contains all eukaryotic, generally multicellular, chlorophyll-containing organisms having cellulosic cell wall and autotrophic mode of nutrition. So this is basically the characteristics of the organisms that fall under the kingdom Plantae. They are eukaryotic, that means they have a proper cell wall, proper membrane bound nucleus and all the membrane bound organelles. And then we have, it is generally multicellular. Multicellular means these are not usually the unicellular structures, but they are generally multicellular structures that are present. They are chlorophyll containing and that is why they are autotrophic in nutrition. In this chapter, we will describe algae, bryophytes, the gymnosperms, pteridophytes as well as angiosperms. So, let us see how the plants are classified. They can be classified as cryptogams and phenirogams. Under cryptogams we have algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, and under phenirogam we have gymnosperms and angiosperms. Basically ये जो classification हम करते हैं cryptogams and phenirogams, the algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes do not produce seeds and they are called as cryptogams. They are basically less developed, whereas Fenirogams, they are more advanced organisms and they produce the seeds as well as flowers in case of angiosperms. So we have under cryptogam the algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. They are the non-flowering plants. So this is the representation of a moss and the mosses fall under bryophytes. Next we have phenirogams, that means the seed producing plants. They can be gymnosperms or angiosperms. The gymnosperms are the organisms that do not have the covered seeds. That means they do not have the structure of the flower around the ovules, but angiosperms are flower producing. So, phenirogams can also be called as spermatophytes. That means they are the seed bearing plants. Let us discuss algae. Under algae, we observe that these organisms have various characteristics. The characteristics are, they are chlorophyll bearing, that means they are having the pigment chlorophyll and that is why they are autotrophic. They are simple in structure and the structure is called as thalloid. आप thalloid को हिंदी शब्द थैले से याद रख सकते हैं. जैसे थैला एक वेग स्ट्रक्चर होता है, उसका कोई प्रॉपर अरेंजमेंट नहीं होती. सिमिलरली जो एल्गी का स्ट्रक्चर होता है, इट इज नॉट लाइक अदर प्लांट्स, लाइक दे हैव अ रूट, दे हैव शूट्स, दे हैव लीव्स. नो, दे डू नॉट हैव सच स्ट्रक्चर्स. दे आर टोटली वेग and they have the thallus like body. Next, they are autotrophic because they have chlorophyll inside them and they perform photosynthesis. That is why they are autotrophic organisms. And they are largely aquatic. They can either be freshwater organisms as well as marine organisms. They occur in a variety of other habitats on moist stones, wood and in soil. So here we can see that they can grow anywhere maybe the moist stones or the wood or even the soil. Some of them also occur in association with fungi. So we know the fungi and algae, the association is called as lichen, as well as on the body of the animals like in case of sloth bear. The form and size of algae is highly variable. So here we see the structure of lichen. It is the foliose lichen that you are seeing in the picture, and here is the sloth bear on the body of which there is the growth of algae. So this is the association that we often see in nature. The form and size of algae is highly variable. The microscopic unicellular forms like Chlamydomonas. So this is the unicellular form of algae, that is Chlamydomonas. The colonial forms are also there, such as volvox. So we can see that the algae volvox is found in the colonies. And also they can be filamentous in structure, that is Eulothrix and Spirogyra. So the first picture you see on the left hand side is of Eulothrix and the other one is Spirogyra. These are the microscopic filamentous structures that we see. A few of the marine forms such as kelps form massive plant bodies. So here we can see such a massive structure of algae. That means हम ये कह सकते हैं कि जो algae है वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा वेरी करती है अपने साइज में और अपनी फॉर्म्स में. वो एक filamentous फॉर्म में हो सकती है, ribbon like फॉर्म में हो सकती है. It can be unicellular, means it can be as small as unicellular organism and also as large as the kelps. The kelps form the large massive structures and grow up to 10 meters tall. So here is the another representation of kelps and they are marine. The cell wall consists of cellulose and other carbohydrates. In addition to chlorophylls and carotenoids, some algae contain special pigments called as phycobilins, and these phycobilin proteins are responsible for the trapping of light, and they are found usually in case of red algae. So we can mention over here that they are responsible for what function? They are responsible for trapping light, and also they can be seen in case of red algae and many other algae also, but usually in red algae. The reserve food is generally starch. So in case of algae, the starch is the reserved food material. The algae reproduce by vegetative, asexual and sexual methods. That means it shows variety in reproduction. So while we are talking about vegetative reproduction, it is by the means of fragmentation. Fragmentation is the process in which the new form is developed and that is called as the new thallus. So here we can see the structure of Spirogyra. Spirogyra is showing vegetative reproduction by forming the two fragments, and these fragments will grow into a separate individual. So that will be the new individual, and this new individual form a body that is called as thallus. Next we have asexual reproduction. So vegetative propagation is done. Now asexual reproduction will take place with the help of spores, the most common being the zoospores. So here we can see there is the presence of zoospores, and these zoospores are flagellated because they are having the flagella. You can see the structure of flagella over here, with the help of which these spores can move. That means they are motile, and on germination they give rise to new plant bodies. Next is sexual reproduction. It takes place through the fusion of two gametes. So it can be isogamous, anisogamous or oogamy. That means isogamy में हम क्या देखते हैं? Here is the representation of the reproduction, the sexual reproduction taking place. So let us see what is there in isogamy. In isogamous reproduction, the gametes are flagellated and similar in size, or non-flagellated, that means non-motile but similar in size. So they can be either motile or non-motile, but they will be similar in size. That means both of the gametes will look similar and also they will be of similar size. That is why we say the term iso, which means same, and gamous, that means gametes. Such reproduction is called as isogamous reproduction. For example, in case of Chlamydomonas and Spirogara. So here we can see the isogametes, the male and female gametes look exactly similar. Next we have anisogamous gametes. That means anisogamous fertilization के केस में क्या होगा? Fusion of two gametes dissimilar in size are termed as anisogamous. So this can be seen in the case of Chlamydomonas, that is anisogamy is shown. The male gamete is smaller in size, the female gamete is larger in size, and you can see that it can either be immotile, here is no flagella present, or it can be motile, that means the presence of flagella is there. Further, we have oogamous type of reproduction, in which the fusion between one large non-motile, or you can say static, female gamete and the smaller motile male gamete is termed as oogamous. So ये एक बहुत ही precise kind of condition है जिसमें जो male gamete होगा वो small size का होगा और वो motile होगा, whereas जो female gamete है वो large in size है and it is immotile. It can be seen in case of volvox and fucus. So here you can see the larger female gamete and the smaller male gamete, and this male gamete is having the flagella, that means it is motile. Life cycle is generally haplontic and the zygote acts as meiocyte. So haplontic life cycle से क्या मतलब है हमारा कि जो मेन बॉडी होगी वो हैप्लॉइड होगी एंड जो zygote फॉर्म होगा वो डिप्लॉइड होगा, एंड इफ द zygote is diploid it will have to undergo meiosis, that means the reduction division, to again form the haploid plant body. So we call the zygote as the meiocyte. Meiocyte is the structure in which meiosis takes place. So the zygote is acting as the meiocyte in which the meiosis will occur. Next, we have algae are useful to man in a variety of ways. So what are the uses of algae? Half of the total carbon dioxide fixation on Earth is carried out by algae through photosynthesis. Being photosynthetic, they increase the level of dissolved oxygen in their immediate environment. They are of paramount importance as primary producers of energy-rich compounds which form the basis of the food cycle of all aquatic animals. Many species of Porphyra, Laminaria and Sargassum are among the 70 species of marine algae used as food. So here we can see the various kind of algae and they are used as food extensively. Next, the certain marine brown algae and red algae produce large amounts of hydrocolloids, that means the water holding substances. So what is the function of hydrocolloids? Basically, जब labs में हम various for example gel electrophoresis का experiment perform कर रहे हैं या फिर different kind of experiments में हमें ज़रूरत होती है jelly like substance की, and that jelly like substance is nothing but the hydrocolloid, that means the substance that can hold water, and the hydrocolloids are highly derived from the brown and red algae. For example, algin, the brown algae, or carrageen, the red algae, and they are highly used to form the hydrocolloids. Agar is used to grow microbes and in preparations of ice creams and jellies. So we know that there are different algae such as Gelidium, Gracilaria, out of which agar is obtained. They are used in lab preparations for making ice cream as well as jellies. Iodine is extracted from kelps like Laminaria. So kelps are also useful as a source of iodine. We see that chlorella and spirulina, they are used extensively by the space travelers for the supplements. Basically उनको food supplements की ज़रूरत है, जैसा खाना वो यहाँ पर खाते हैं वैसा वो space में नहीं खा सकते, and that is why the chlorella and spirulina are used as the food supplements in the form of tablets, and they are used by the space travelers. On the basis of the pigmentation and type of stored food, the algae are divided into three main classes. The first one is the Chlorophycy, second one is Phaeophycy, and the Rhodophycy. So these are the three divisions in which the algae can be classified. Let us see Chlorophycy. The members of Chlorophycy are commonly called green algae. Here we are using the term chloro, that means it is standing for chlorophyll, and if it is having the chlorophyll, it will be green in color. So here is the presence of the green algae. The plant body may be unicellular, colonial, or filamentous. They are usually grass green due to the dominance of the pigment chlorophyll A and B. The pigments are localized in definite chloroplasts. The chloroplasts may be discoid, plate-like, reticulate, cup-shaped, spiral, or ribbon-shaped in different species. So here we can see different structures. This is the discoid. Then we have the plate-like structure. It can be reticulate or it can be cup-shaped. Here we can also see the spiral structure of the chloroplasts, and it is varying from species to species of algae. Most of the members have one or more storage bodies called as pyrenoids located in the chloroplasts. Pyrenoids contain proteins besides starch. So for the development, for the growth, it also requires the stored food, and that storage bodies are called as the pyrenoids. Pyrenoids are containing the proteins besides starch. That means starch के साथ साथ इनके पास proteins भी present होते हैं. Some algae may store food in the forms of oil droplets. So here you can see the structure of pyrenoids over here, and they are used as the storage bodies in the body of algae. Green algae usually have a rigid cell wall, an inner layer of cellulose and an outer layer of pectose. That means जो cell wall है वो दो layers की बनी हुई है, that is of cellulose, the inner layer, and pectose, that is the outer layer. Vegetative reproduction usually takes place by fragmentation. So here you can again see the representation of fragmentation. जो main body है वो दो fragments में divide हो जाएगी, and these fragments will further develop into new individuals. Asexual reproduction is by flagellated zoospores produced in zoosporangia. The sexual reproduction shows considerable variation in the type and formation of sex cells, and it may be isogamous, anisogamous, or oogamous. So again here we can see the isogamous, anisogamous as well as oogamous conditions. Some commonly found green algae are Chlamydomonas, Volvox, Chara, Eulothrix as well as Spirogyra. Next we have the second category, that is Phaeophycy. The members of Phaeophycy or brown algae are found primarily in the marine habitats. So here is the representation of the brown algae. They show great variation in the size and form. They range from a simple branched filamentous forms, that is ectocarpus, to profusely branched forms as represented by the kelps. So here you can see first structure is of ectocarpus, that is simple, branched and filamentous. On the other hand, you can see the structure of kelps. Kelps are so huge in size that they form the underwater forests, and that means they are very, very tall. They grow so tall that they entirely make the forest inside the water bodies. The height can reach up to 100 meters. Phaeophycy possesses the pigments chlorophyll A, chlorophyll C, carotenoids as well as xanthophyll. So these are the important pigments that are found in the body of Phaeophycy. Then we have, they vary in color from olive green to various shades of brown depending upon the amount of xanthophyll pigment fucoxanthin present in them. So ये जो green color हमें provide कर रहा था, वो provide कर रहा था chlorophyll A and B. Now in case of brown algae, there is a special pigment that is xanthophyll pigment called as fucoxanthin, and with the help of fucoxanthin, the color appears brown or maybe olive green in color. Food is stored as complex carbohydrates, and they are in the form of laminarin or mannitol. So these are the important forms of the stored food in Phaeophycy. The vegetative cells have a cellulosic cell wall. They usually are covered on outside by a gelatinous coating of algin. The protoplast contains plastids, vacuoles and nucleus. And what do you understand by protoplast? Protoplast is the structure that is of a single cell, and it is based when the cell wall is removed and only cell membrane and the inner structure is present. So in that case we call it as the protoplast. The plant body is usually attached to the substratum by a holdfast and has a stalk, the stipe and leaf-like photosynthetic organ. So here you can see the structure of the whole part. That is, first of all we have the holdfast. Holdfast is acting as the anchorage, and it will be attaching to the substratum on which the algae has to grow. Then we have the stipe-like structure. They are the leaf-like photosynthetic organs having the gas bladder as well as the blades, the leaf blade-like structure, and the whole structure is called as the frond. Except the holdfast, the upper part is called as frond. Vegetative reproduction takes place by fragmentation. And when we are talking about asexual reproduction, in most brown algae, it is with the help of the biflagellated spores, and they are the zoospores that are pear-shaped and have two unequal laterally attached flagella. Sexual reproduction may be isogamous, anisogamous or oogamous. So here you can see the structure of the zoospore. It is pear-like in structure and it has the two unequal flagella. That there is a representation of a structure, that is, when the union of gametes take place, it can be in the water or within the oogonium. And when the gametes are pyriform, that means they are pear-shaped and bear two laterally attached flagella. So here we see that there is fertilization taking place. There is one oogonium, that is the female sex organ. There is antheridium, that is the male sex organ. They are arising from the same thallus and they give rise to the haploid thallus. That means the oospores that are developing inside the oogonium, they will further lead to the development of new individuals and they will be the haploid thallus. Next, we have the common forms of these algae, that is the Ectocarpus, Dictyota, Laminarin, Sargassum and Fucus. All are the categories of the brown algae. Next, we have the last one, that is the Rhodophycy. Rhodophycy members are commonly called as red algae, and this is the structure. The predominance of the red pigment, that is R-phycoerythrin, in their body. So while we were talking about the brown algae, the dominant pigment was fucoxanthin, but over here the dominant pigment is phycoerythrin and it is responsible for the red color of the algae. Majority of red algae are marine with more number found in warmer areas. They occur in both higher and light intensity regions close to the surface of water. That means if we are talking about the high light intensity regions, वहाँ पर भी red algae मिल सकती है, and even in the deep waters, because deep water की हम इसीलिए बात कर रहे हैं क्योंकि जो red color की जो wavelength होती है, red light की जो wavelength होती है वो सबसे ज़्यादा होती है. तो deep water में हमें mainly red algae मिलती है, but it can also be found on the surface water. Also at great depths in the ocean where relatively little light penetrates. The thalli of most of the red algae are multicellular. Some of them have complex body organization. The major pigments that we see in case of red algae are chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B as well as phycoerythrin. The food is stored as Floridian starch, which is very similar to amylopectin and glycogen in structure. The red algae usually reproduce vegetatively by fragmentation. So हमने देखा कि जो algae है, mainly be it red algae or brown algae, mainly they are showing asexual reproduction by the means of fragmentation. They reproduce asexually by non-motile spores and they reproduce sexually by the non-motile gametes. So here we can see the non-motile spores as well as non-motile gametes. The female sex organ is a flask-shaped Carpogonium and non-flagellated male gamete is called as spermatium. So here we can see the structure of Carpogonium. Sexual reproduction is oogamous and accompanied by complex post-fertilization developments. The common members are Polysiphonia, Porphyra, Glaceraria and Gelidium. So here are the representation of the following. This is Gracilaria as well as Gelidium. I hope you understood the topic. Thanks for watching.